Today's guest, Martinez Evans, a random hip injury turned into a life changing moment when his doctor bluntly told him that he was too fat. And when Martinez responded that he was going to run a marathon, his doctor laughed out loud and told him that he would die if he tried to run a marathon in his condition. Instead of being discouraged, Martinez left that doctor's office. He drove straight to a random running store and he bought his first pair of running shoes, determined to prove the doctor wrong. And what started as an act of defiance led Martinez to not only complete multiple marathons, but he also created a platform that welcomes slow runners.
I came in and I felt a sharp pain in my hip, and I couldn't even put any weight on my foot. Like I couldn't put weight on my hip. And like that was crazy. And I remember like talking to one of the managers, like, yo, I gotta get up out of here. So I leave the next day. I was supposed to work. I think I was working like a 7-day sprint and come back still pain. He's like, and I remember him being like, don't come back until like you feel better, until your hip is all right, because like you're useless on the sales floor if you can't stand up. And so yeah, like I went to the doctor and got x-rays, and then
did you have insurance, or how did you find this doctor?
Yeah, I had insurance.
Okay.
Yeah, man, you gotta have them benefits, man, you know.
Right. But this is somebody you didn't know before. This doctor was just some guy off a list.
Just from a list.
Okay.
And
this is the funniest part of the whole story, by the way.
Yeah, like I had insurance. You know, black folk have insurance, but don't even use it. I didn't even use it to go see not one doctor in that time span to have insurance. But go to the doctor. That led me to another doctor, which led me to the doctor who pretty much changed my life. And I go into the doctor's office, and he's a very short guy, you know, very thick accent. And, you know, and I'm having this conversation like, yeah, you know, I can't put any weight on it. Like I played football, you know, is it a previous football injury, yada, yada, yada. And he's like looking at me. He's like, well, Mr. Evans, like, I know why you're in pain. And I'm like, all right, like lay it on me. Like, what is it? Like, you know, already you ain't diagnosed me. You ain't felt on me or nothing. You ain't even look at my chart. Like, how you know why I'm in pain? And he's like, because you're fat. Like, what? Like, you're fat. And he like goes on this whole tangent of like, you got a pregnant woman's stomach, you know, these titties, and like you need to start walking, you need to lose weight, you're gonna die, and like all these other things. And like hearing that brought me back to like some of the stuff that I heard throughout my childhood or just growing up. And I remember just saying sarcastically him, because I'm like, at this point I've checked out. So I'm like, yeah, whatever. And I remember like, all right, like, yeah, I'm gonna run a marathon. Like I'm gonna run a marathon. It's like, you run a marathon? Dude had the most biggest laugh ever. Like I told a joke. It was like, you run a marathon, like you gonna die. And it's like, what you mean I'm gonna die? Like, you gonna die. Like, you try it, you gonna die. And like I remember like we just kept having this argument, because I'll just say something snarky and he'll say something snarky back, or it's like I'll say something that's like, you just gonna die. To the point it's like, well, I'm gonna get the hell up out of here. So I just leave, like storm out the doctor's office, because we was almost to come to blows. Like I remember like talking to him with like my fist balled up, and I was like, oh, I need to get up out of here. So leave the doctor's office, and I'm driving home, and like I'm still ruminating on this conversation. Like, who the fuck this doctor tell me I'm gonna die if I run a marathon? Like, should I run a marathon a day? And then like as I said that, I'm driving past a Fleet Feet, which is a running shoe store, and like I made a U-turn and went in a running shoe store. I was like, I need running shoes now. And I remember it's like being like, oh, okay, what are you doing? You gonna run a 5K or something? And I'm like, me be like, fuck no, I'm gonna run a marathon running today. It's like, you got a race or something? It's like, no, I'm running that bad boy today on a treadmill. Give me my shoes. And then, go through the whole process. I get the shoes. I go to the treadmill in my apartment complex. And like there's these two guys on either side of me, like running on a treadmill. And like they're running fast. So I'm like, oh, okay, like I can do this shit too. So I look at the one guy, his treadmill speed is like at 10. I look at the other person, they're like 9 or 8 or something like that. And I think I turned mine to 7. I was like, I'm getting it in. I get on the treadmill and like my body just felt like it was rejecting the treadmill. And I'm breathing hard, I'm breathing heavy. I don't know if I'm running too fast. I don't know if I'm running too slow. And one of the things that happened was like, I remember reaching out to like turn the button off. And like I pulled back and like I hesitated. Like, nah, like I need to run this marathon today. And then as soon as I hesitated, my feet left the treadmill and my shoulder hit the belt, man.
Mm.
Made this big ass noise. So like everybody's looking at me and I'm like getting up as fast as I can, like just hoping like nobody like addresses me. And like one of the guys that was next to me was like, hey bro, you all right? I'm like, yeah, I just lost my balance. Like grab everything and like just get out the fitness center. And as I was going home, I reached out to the doorknob and I had this tattoo on my right wrist that says no struggle, no progress. And as I was like reaching to the handle and like it came out and I was like, I gotta like this gotta change. Like I gotta make it a change. Like he not gonna beat me. I'm gonna have to prove some people wrong. And that was the start, man. That was the start of the journey. As far as this, from what you see today, man. I went back out there the next day and, ran 30 seconds, went out there the next day, ran a minute, and then I just kind of like just build on it. Like each day, I'll just double like what I was doing until somebody was like, hey, man, you need to download Couch to 5K. I download, I don't know, 5, 6 of them. And I just picked one and I started to do Couch to 5K. And then like it was hard. Like I remember repeating a bunch of days because like no matter which one I did, I just felt like my body was not adjusting to the treadmill or just running in general. So I remember just repeating a lot of days in Couch to 5K until I was able to like complete it. So like, let's say week 5, day 1, like you run, I don't know, 10 minutes straight. I'm just making up something like, say you got to run 10 minutes straight. And I'm like, I can't run no damn 10 minutes straight. So like, I'll just keep repeating that day over and over and over until I was able to run for 10 minutes straight. And then I'll go to the next day. And like, sometimes it'll take me a week. Sometimes it'll take me like 2 weeks until I was able to like complete whatever that day was in order to like feel like I'm able to move on.
What about your heel? I mean, your heel was in pain. How did that go away, or did you just tolerate the pain, or how did that work out?
So during that process, I did end up going to physical therapy.
Mm-hmm.
So during that process, the first couple of runs, like I still was in pain. Like that first run, I was in pain. Probably shouldn't did it. And it was my wife like, maybe you should probably go to physical therapy. And B be like, yeah, you know what? I probably should. And I remember just walking in physical therapy one day and be like, hey, my hip hurts here. And like pointing to it. And it's like, you got insurance? And I was like, yep. And it's like, all right, let's work. I don't know what would happen if I didn't have insurance, but luckily I did. And during that whole process of me like running on the treadmill and like completing these days, like I'll go to physical therapy and, say, hey, I ran for this long, this is where it hurts at, how can we get this fixed? And, after a while, I don't know, maybe 3 months to 6 months, it eventually the pain ended up easing up. But yeah, during that whole time where I was initially running or starting to run, I was going to physical therapy.
And the blog, 300 pounds and running, was that sort of like accountability for you? Like, did that help you stay committed, or were you going to stay committed anyway and you just wanted to share your experience?
I'm gonna tell you the truth. I started the blog because I felt like that's what people was doing during that time. I was like, you know what? Like, I remember talking to my partner and being like, hey, like I think I'm gonna start a blog with this. Like, I think this is what people do. Like, they go on a journey and then they write about it and people watch it and like read it. Like, what's a blog? And I'm like, a website that people put things on and like tell their story. And it's like, okay. So that's what I did. Like, I started the blog, and I wasn't looking for like anybody to read it or anything like that, because like it was just something like I thought that's what people did. Like, people start a journey and then they write about it like on the internet, and you become one of the cool kids. I don't know, like, but I did start that blog, and initially like nobody was reading it. It was just me, my significant other, maybe my sister, my mom, and a couple friends. And then like people started telling other people like, hey, Martinez got this blog here, and he trying to run this marathon and like lose weight. Like, you should read it because it's interesting. And some of the things he say is funny. And like people just started to read it, right? And I remember going to this conference. There was this conference called Fit Blogging, where like a bunch of fitness people and like fitness bloggers like got together and like met up and just kicked it. And I remember going there and being so nervous, yo, because I was like, all right, like I only lost like 10 pounds. Like, I was like new into the journey, but like met a bunch of like lifelong friends from that conference just to be like, hey, I'm Martinez. Like, I'm trying to run this marathon. Like, I write this blog. Y'all should read it, type thing. And like met a bunch of people who like supported me and, celebrated and like cheered me on, and people who were still cheering me on. Yeah.
And it took you, what, a year and a half to
Yeah.
do the marathon, the
Yeah.
Detroit Marathon?
Yeah. It was no joke. It was no joke.
Did you have a lot of people thinking you wouldn't be able to pull it off in your life?
Absolutely. Absolutely, man. A lot of family members, a lot of friends, like, yo, what you doing is crazy. And like some of them just said, like, oh, you gonna pass out. Like, I remember the first time I told my mother, and my mother is she's a little older. And me being like, oh, I need to go run. Or like coming home for Thanksgiving and being like, all right, like I need to go run, Mom. She's like, oh, like how far are you running? And me being like 16 miles. 16 miles. Ooh, boy, you gonna pass out? What you mean you running 16 miles? And then like having to like explain it and tell her the story, like, yeah, doctor called me fat. I'm trying to train for this marathon. And how long is a marathon? 26 miles. What? How long is it supposed to take you? I don't know, 6-7 hours. You saying you gonna run 26 miles in 7 hours? Boy, you crazy. You ain't doing that. Man, that's some white people shit. You better go on with that. Sit here and eat these greens and dress them. So like that was a lot of people's response when I was training for that first marathon, especially, people of color. My family members like, what? You run? Like, how long was a marathon? And going through that whole experience, it was like another thing to like add fuel to the fire. Like, oh, I need to do this because like they don't understand how big this is. And me being like, well, or even this, I remember like telling them like the story of the marathon, right? Or like the legend, like, there was this war, the marathon, like the guy runs to like tell the news and like gets there and he dies. And it's like, you want to run something that the first time that
The first guy died.
dies?
That's a good point, though. I mean, if you don't know anything about marathons, and that's the story you hear to kind of sell you on it, that's like, oh, okay. The guy died. Okay.
Yeah. And me be
All
like,
right.
no, like,
Got
this
it.
is cool. Like, people do this, like I'm gonna do this. And it's like, you gonna die just like that first dude.
Hey, really quickly, if you like this content or if you don't like it, let me know down in the comments, because your likes and comments are going to help me learn what you want more of. And then that way I can keep bringing you the good stuff. All right. Thanks so much for your feedback, and back to the show.
So I think, hearing up to this part of the story, you ran the marathon, right? You crossed the finish line, glorious moment, at least personally as an accomplishment.
Mhm.
The story could really end there, right? Like that's where the credits could start rolling.
Yeah.
Because now you've created this new obsession with this activity that's obviously going to benefit your life in all the right ways. But cut to, year later, tragedy strikes again. I mean, you either stay embarrassed or you're in some kind of physical dilemma.
That's my life. January 2014. The marathon was October 2013. Literally months later, I get in a fucking car accident, man. I get in a car accident, totaled my car, hurt myself bad. Like,
What happened? Were you distracted or?
So what was happening was like I was actually driving back to school, and what happened was there was a lot of traffic, and what happened was there was a school bus on the left side of me, and there was a little bit ahead, but like the light was red. So the school bus waved like this mail truck over.
Mm-hmm.
And I was coming down the street, and as I was driving, the light turned green, so I accelerated. So as I accelerated, the school bus had waved the mail truck over, and I T-boned the mail truck.
Okay. Wow. Was the guy okay or the woman okay?
Yeah, the person was okay.
But you're out of commission. You can't run. You can't do anything.
Can't do nothing for at least 7 to 8 months, man. Down bad. Gained back all the weight that I have lost during that time. I get depressed, get suicidal. Like, I get all of that stuff, man, because like that thing that I've been doing or like working on for like the past 18 months, or almost like the past 2 years now, was like just taken away from me quickly. Like in a moment that I didn't even have any control over. Yeah, like I didn't even have no control over it. And it took me about, I don't know, 7 or 8 months to get healed from that, and then get into another car accident. Fucking car rear ends me on the freeway. So get hurt again. So was out for another 6-7 months. And then after that, come back to it, started to feel good. And then I injure myself running. So it was like this hard, like good year and a half where car accident, hurt myself. And I remember being like something got to change, but like, this is the thing that I want to do. Like, I remember, in New England, when the fall hit, the colors change and the leaves are falling and things of that sort. And like, I remember driving and like people was just like, it was like a very scenic day. Like the leaves are changing colors, people were running, enjoying themselves. And I remember being like, man, I want that. And like, I'll do that, like, regardless, like what my situation is. Like, if I'm able to run again I don't care like what weight I'm at. Like I'm going to run. I'm not going to worry about weight loss. Like I'm just going to do what I got to do to enjoy running because I really do enjoy it. I like the person I was when I was running and training and things of that sort. And like that was the promise that I made to myself.
So last I checked, Men's Warehouse doesn't have medical leave. So what were you doing for money while you were sitting around on the couch for months at a time recovering?
Um, I was also in grad school during that time too. So like
Okay.
after Men's Warehouse, I went to grad school, had a TA-ship. So I just did that a lot. I became like a full-time student in grad school during that time.
This is where you were working in the weight loss lab?
Yeah. Yeah.
What was going on there? I mean, like you said, you're a walking contradiction. So you're working in a weight loss lab, you're 400 pounds. And you said when your colleagues like pulled you up one day, it's like, is everything okay? Like, well, how are you reconciling all of that?
Man, it was tough during that time because you gotta remember. So let's clear it up. You had Men's Warehouse. I get injured.
Mm-hmm.
I started running. You know, during that time, I get into grad school. So I'm working at grad school. I've lost that weight. So like they reap the benefits of like, oh, Martinez has lost close to 100 pounds. You know, yada yada yada, and then get into a car accident, gained all that weight back, and that's when they're like, yo, are you okay? Like, what's going on? I was like, fucking depressed, man. What you expect?
Were you straight up with them like that? Did you say, I'm just
No. No. I just try to play it down like, yeah, I'm just going through some things. I really haven't been able to bounce back from a car accident, like things of that sort.
What were you learning in the weight loss lab? Like, is there anything applicable to your own personal situation, or were you confronted with anything related to what they were talking about or researching in there?
What was interesting? I would say it was interesting. So, at one point I was like a diabetes. What is that certification? So like one of the things that you do learn there is that a lot of the stuff is like psychology based stuff. So like they're using like acceptance and commitment model or CBT, which is like cognitive behavior theory, things of that sort. So I learned a lot of like, I'm gonna say science, but like therapeutic type things that was like, oh, like maybe I need to go to therapy. So, yeah, I was able to get some of these trainings to, become a diabetes or certified diabetic, like type of teacher. Some of the other behavior change models, or just even learning that, right? Like there's a model to behavior change and me being like, oh crap, like, oh, like there's a model to this, like scientifically. I would say like those are some of the things that stuck with me, but like the actual thing of like, oh, this is how you're gonna lose weight. I would say the main thing that really just stuck with me was journaling or like keeping a log and being very honest about your struggles throughout that journey of like trying to lose weight. Like those are the things that I really learned. And then the main thing I learned, the main thing I learned is that there's no difference between any other diet scientifically. Like if you line up all the diets together, like there's no difference in the amount of weight change that happens between any of the diets. So like I remember when, that paper came out and being like, oh, like this is when paleo was big. This is when, when people like, oh, I'm gonna go on this diet and yada, yada, yada. And, to have that scientific article and be like, none of this shit really matters. Like you are following something and like you are hating it. And guess what? You don't have to do it because when you compare apples to apples to any other quote unquote diet or popular diet, like there's no significant change in the amount of weight. And I think for me, you know, that's where the whole notion of like, during that time, I'm also going through that notion of like, oh, like I want to run and I don't want to run like regardless of what weight I'm at, that I had that knowledge of to be like, oh, like this is all a scheme that the man is set up and able to make money, from these people. And like me going back to my exercise science days and my other days in grad school to be like, well, there's so many other benefits to exercise. Like, why are we using exercise as this punishment for weight loss? Like, why are we just not using exercise as like the overall elixir for better health? So like, that's where like a combination of those type of things was happening, because like I had the knowledge myself, right? I had the exercise science degree. I ran this race. Of course I lost weight and I gained it back. But when you look at the data of like, there's so many other benefits that come from just exercise, that I was like, well, why am I even like boxing myself in to be the specific weight to please the other people around me? And if I'm happy of what I'm doing, like why I just won't just do more of that and like not focus on this scale? Cause like it was a lot of pressure, right? Like I'm getting on the scale, I'm blogging about it. And like, I remember I used to have this thing called Weight Loss Wednesday or like weigh in Wednesday. So like I used to get on the scale and like weigh myself every Wednesday. And like as I was like gaining this weight and all this other stuff, I'm like, why am I still doing this? Like, why am I putting myself like through this in order to like appease this model or thing that I think people want from me? And of course, like some people left and I was like, yo, I'm not really focused on weight loss anymore. I'm just trying to like run marathons and like really enjoy running and like being in my body. And like this is before I even knew the term like body positivity or like self-acceptance and things of that sort. I remember just saying like, yo, I'm just trying to like enjoy the person that I am. And I really like Martinez when Martinez is active, like regardless if like he's losing weight, is he's gaining weight or whatever. Like I just enjoy myself better when I'm active. So like that's where some of the like clicking of, some of the things of like models that I thought of, or like, this is not a weight loss journey. And, me just being like, you can be active and for the sake of being active and not have to like do it for weight. And I know that's hard for people because when we think about like exercising and things of that sort, the main thing you associate with it is weight. Like, oh, you going for a run? Like, oh, you trying to get that weight off you, huh? Or you doing some sit-ups? Oh boy, you trying to get them abs, huh? Or you doing squats? Oh, okay. I see you trying to get them legs. But it's not like, yo, yeah, I'm running because I want better cardiovascular health. Like I'm running because like I enjoy like running races and like doing something hard and like completing it, or like people seeing me and like thinking, oh, like, oh, this is his first time, like you'll be okay, and trying to give me acknowledgement or like trying to give me encouragement. And then I pass them in the race. Like those are the things that like bring me the most joy when it comes to like being physically active.
How was your, at that time, right, 2015, 16, how was your idea of success starting to shift?
In 2000, when you say
Just
success,
when you start running again after your accidents and you heal yourself and now you're becoming more and more proficient just as someone who knows they can finish a race, like what are you thinking about success? Is it about health at this point? Is it about making money? Is it about starting your own thing, or what were you thinking?
no, at that time, truthfully, it was about running as many races as I can. Like that's literally what I was trying to do, is run as many races as I can. Any race that I signed up for or could afford, like I did it.
So you were working to run races,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah. Because like that was the fun thing, to be able to see my friends in order to, to be able to see my friends, to be able to meet other people and have conversations with complete strangers about like running. And, I don't know if you ever ran a race before, but like there's this thing of like it's the last stretch and you just look around and you see like who you with. And you look at that guy, you give him the head nod, like we gonna run this in together. And it's like, yeah, we're gonna run this in together. And like y'all just running in together and like y'all give each other a big high five or a hug and like, good job. Like you did that shit.
So speaking of that, this is something I didn't realize that this was happening until I read into your story. Talk about some of the fucked up things that happen to people who run really slow at the end of the races.
Oh man, where you want to start at?
The Berlin, we can start in Berlin. The race you trained for 152 days for.
Dang, man. I forgot I trained for that long. I forgot I trained for that long. Berlin. So the thing about Berlin is a part of the World Majors or the Abbott World Marathon Majors or something like that. The Abbott Marathon World Majors. Google it. It's one of those things. It's Abbott, it's Marathon Majors, and it's 6 of them. So the 6 are New York City, Boston, Chicago, Tokyo, London, Berlin. Big thing, 30, 40,000 people come to these races a year. And like they're so competitive to get in that you have to like put your name into this lottery. And then like they select you and it becomes like this big thing on social media day of like I got into the lottery. This year, like I got into Berlin Marathon like through the lottery. I was like, oh shit, like I've never been to Berlin. Like I'm on cloud nine. I'm going to train for this thing because like I'm going to enjoy this thing. And then like some of my other friends are also going. So it becomes this thing of like, oh, like we're going to travel. Like we're going to go travel. We're going to be buddies. We're going to run this race. We're going to have a good time. So yeah, how many days I trained for this? 152.
Yeah.
So 152 days of like training in the summer. That's the thing people don't tell you. Most race seasons happen in the fall or in the spring, which means either you're running through the dog days of summer or you're running through the wintertime. Berlin happens in October, so I'm running through the summertime. Hot. Like imagine running, 18 miles on an 80-degree day. Not fun. So I train for this thing, get to Berlin, like have the best time of my life there. Like I'm having a ball in Berlin. The race come and it's a weird day for me. What I mean weird is that the Airbnb I was at, I ran to the start line and like it was, I don't know, mile away. It's okay. Like I can do this. I ran, like I'm running for this marathon. Run there and like I get to the start line and I'm soaked. Like I'm like it's humid and I am soaked. Anyway, still trying to shake it off. Like, all right, like it's gonna be okay. I'm here. I'm gonna drink some water. The gun goes off and we run. And then it rains. And then it stopped raining and then it gets breezy. So it gets cold. And like you're going through this whole experience of like, all right, am I going to quit? Like, no, you can't quit. This is Berlin. You done spent all this money. You done came all the way over here. You can't quit. Like you can't give it up. Get to the finish line. So during that time, like, yeah, people are starting to slow down because of the rain, the weather, things of that sort. Like I'm running in like soaked shoes. Every step I'm taking, you hear a squeak. You hear a squeak from like the rubber and the cushion like squeaking as it compressed. So as I'm progressing through it, and I noticed that I'm like, getting a little bit behind, but I'm talking to some of the volunteers like, hey, like y'all gonna let me finish? Like, are we okay? And it's like, no, you're okay. Like, you're good to go. And get to the finish line or like get to the Brandenburg gate. So to get to the finish line, you got to run through this, the Brandenburg gate to get to the finish line. So I'm running and I see a bunch of people there. I was like, all right, good. Like I'm golden. Like I'm gonna cross this finish line. I'm gonna get this medal. Get to the gate, like get past the gate, and like there's these other gates that's up. And like I'm talking to the guy. He's like, no, 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 you have to go this way. And it's like, no, like I'm running the race. Like I have this bib on. Like I'm running the race. Like I need to finish. And he's like, no, 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 like you have to go to the exit. And it's like, no, like I need to cross the finish line. He's like, no, no, no. So like we're going back and forth, and then like, nah, there's other people there. It's like, no, like we need to cross the finish line. We're running a race still. And it's like, the race is over. The race is over. And it's like, the race can't be over. Like, because I'm still here. What do you mean the race is over?
I'm in the race. The race is not over.
Exactly. Like the race is not over because I'm here.
Right.
I need to cross this finish line. So he would not let us cross this finish line. He had these gates. And like you go through the exit. And I'm like, all right, you got to go through the exit. And I'm like, all right, well, I need to cross this finish line. And in my head, like it didn't even click to me like, oh, like this is over. So I'm like, I need to cross this finish line. So I go through the exit. I run through it. And like to get back to the finish line was maybe another mile. So about the time I got there, when I was there with a guy arguing, the lights were still on and everything like that. I get back to the finish line after going an extra mile and going around and things of that sort. The lights are off, people packing up shit, all this stuff. And I just broke down, man. I break down because it's like I trained for this long. Like I made an intentional effort to train for this race, to be like, this is the race that I'm going to conquer. This is the race that I'm going to do. And to like run the whole race in the rain, like it rained multiple times, like downpours in the rain. I was prepared, had a poncho, like to do all these things and to get there and not be able to cross the finish line. It's like the hardest feeling ever. Like it hurt me so bad.
And that's the thing. They run out of water sometimes. They run out of cups. They turn the tables over.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, so I want to get there. So somebody hands me a medal and it's a fucking inline skating medal. It's not even a marathon medal. It's like, good job, buddy. Good job. It hands me an inline skating medal. And I just lose it. Like, what? Like, why? Like, why am I doing any of this? Like, this is dumb. And, this is me going through emotions. And eventually I get, a marathon medal, but I have 2 medals from Berlin because like, just felt just like not looked after and not cared for because I'm a slower runner. And this happens to a lot of people, right? You mentioned before, they flip over tables of water. They pull up the signs. Like I've had people, even myself, like run a race and get lost on the course because they've taken up the arrows to let you know like where you need to be at, especially when you're at an intersection. So imagine being at a 4-way intersection and like it's only you and maybe somebody else behind you. And you're at this intersection. Nobody's there in front of you. There's no volunteers. And you like, where do I go? And it's like you're just taking a bet, like, all right, do I keep straight? But what if that intersection you're supposed to make a right or left? And like, you just get off track, right? They've run out of water, they've run out of medals. And I think this is very interesting because this is something that I write about and I wrote about. I wrote an article called the open letter to race directors from the back of the pack. And like you can see like from the responses of like mixed bags of like you have people who's like, yes, like I've been through this and this is why I don't run races anymore. And then you have other people who like these elitist assholes. That's like, that's on you. Lose weight, get faster. And it's like, but I paid the same amount of money you did. I paid the same amount of money you did. I probably trained longer. Like I trained for 152 days for this thing. Like, and your response to me is to lose weight and get faster. Like, what type of justice and fairness is that? But yeah, man, it's one of the things that I fight for now, to like use my voice and my following to be like, hey, racist, like people, um, we pay our green money to do the same thing that somebody else does. And the least that we can do, like at least y'all can do, is give us the same amount of treatment. Or at least make things black and white in order for us to know the rules. Because here's the thing with races, right? Is that it's a lot of gray area, right? Like they may tell you, oh, the race cutoff is 7 hours, right? But 7 hours from what? 7 hours from when the person start? 7 hours from when the last person start? Like 7 hours when, right? And then whatever it is, they don't follow it. Because it's been times where I've been like on pace to the T. You know, a race might be a 7 hour cutoff. I run the race and I finish the race in 6 hours and 45 minutes. But throughout the second half of the race, there's no water. Like I'm asking police officers, hey, officer, which way do I go? Luckily for me, like, you know, I have my phone or I have the actual course map. So I got to literally stop at the intersection, trace my finger around the course and be like, all right, I'm at this intersection. I need to turn right. Like I do all of these things in order to cross the finish line. As a like a giant fuck you to like the people who are, you know, who've forgotten about us, but also for the other people to be like, yo, this is a like this experience doesn't make you less than an athlete, it make you more than an athlete because you have to go through all of these adversities to get to this finish line. You got to train harder, and it's like it's the thing of like being black, right? You got to be twice as good, 3 times as good to get the same effect. And I think that's just one of the things that I'm telling to the people who follow me and the people who, you know, who are also out there to say like this makes you more of an athlete because you went through all of these things.
Thank you so much for watching. Just FYI, we post a new video almost every day, so make sure you comment and subscribe below so you don't miss out on anything. And if you enjoyed this video, I think you're really going to love this one as well. And if you ever want to see a playlist of all of my podcasts or all of the plot twists or any other category of videos, you can find links to those in the description below.